Yippee-yay.
Hi guys, and welcome to New Vegas Mod Organizer Part 4.
For today. 'Cause I got
Now, so far in this series, I've shown you how to install Mod Organizer, set it up for Fallout New Vegas, install some of the essential mods, set up your profiles, and even beginning the process of migrating your Nexus mod managed mods over to Mod Organizer. And in this video, I'm going to finish that process. I'm going to continue on, get all of my mods over into Mod Organizer, and show you the sort of problems that I encountered and that you possibly will encounter, and how to fix them. Now at this point, my instinct was to continue installing the big mods, things like WMX, Eve, that type of thing, to install those and get those working first. However, in this particular case, I resisted that urge, and what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to look at the last save I had, and I'm going to look at the files at the top of the ESP list. These are the files that it's currently missing, and it tends to show you them in the order it's expecting them. This means what I probably should do is find the mod where, say, the top one, yup, base game plus all DLC.esm file is located, and install that one. That way I make sure I install the mods in the exact same way. So I have the same options, rather than, for example, if I'd have installed the WMX, I don't actually remember which version I chose. I think I remember. And of course I could go along to the plugin list I saved that gave me the full load order and check it that way. But seeing as I've got this list, I may as well add them in this order. And so the first one I installed is the YUP. I'm not even attempting to say that. The unofficial patch. I'm going to select that. And now that file should have disappeared. I'm also going to drag one HUD down below it. In this particular case, it doesn't matter. But I have a feeling I'm going to be dragging one HUD down fairly far. Next up, NVEC bug fixes. So I'm going to go and find that one. Bug fixes will be this one, not the reduce CTDs, I assume. Let's have a look. And it's got the NVEC bug fixes ESM plus a BSA. I'm going to cancel that and just do a quick check. Yep, it's the bug fixes ESM, so that is the one I am looking for. And so on. And I'm going to keep doing this all the way down the list until all of the mods are installed and all of the required ESPs and ESMs are in place. Okay, this is a little odd. I was expecting this one to open up an installer, and it didn't. However, that's not a problem, because I can actually show you another feature of the optional files, which is kind of useful. I did check the website for this mod, the page for this mod, and there is a new version that has some changes with the installer, so perhaps that would work. However, I do not want to update any of my mods. I want to get my load order working exactly as it was on Nexus Mod Manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the pre-made weapons of the new millennium and set that as my data folder. I'm going to deselect optional store. I do not need that. I don't need the faux mod or the images for that matter. Yeah, this is for the faux mod. I don't need those. I need the meshes, the sounds, the textures, and perhaps all of these, even though I actually don't need some of these patches. I'm going to keep them. I'm going to create the mod. It will take a little while. It's rather large. And once it's done, I'm going to double click, quickly check the file tree, and look at the optional ESPs. As you can see, I've got quite a few. Now I can tell you that I didn't use this because I don't have Caliber X, and I didn't use the cheat cabinet. But I used all of these, and to double check, I've opened up the plugins.txt, the backup one I made from my original Nexus Mod Manager load order, and I just searched for weapons.of, all the ESPs were there, named that, and found the level list. Actually, let me just go all the way up first of all to the top one. As you can see, the ESM followed by the level lists, the store, and the Honest Hearts grunt patch, and nothing else. So 4 files, and there you go. So those are the ones I actually need. Close that. The mod has now been selected correctly. I can select it, and in my plugins tab, I will find all of the ones I actually need. Now, the next issue that came up for me was with the More Perks mod, and when I tried to activate it, I got none of the available installer plugins were able to handle that archive, which is a little odd. So I went along to the mod organizer. Actually, for me, it is I have my mods stored somewhere else. Mod organizer, Fallout New Vegas, downloads. The place I've got the downloads, and I looked for More Perks, and when I looked, the archive seems reasonable to me. Meshes, sound, textures, 2 ESMs. There is this More Perks documents. So I tried deleting that from the archive from here and thought perhaps that would work. And I got the same problem. And even if I decided to delete the meta file, in case that was the problem, query the info and select the correct one. Oh, it's already correct. It's correctly identified it. I still got this problem. So the way I finally fixed this was to take, I'm going to delete the meta file again. I am going to delete the meta file, and I'm going to take this file and drag it to my desktop. And once that's done, I'm going to, I should mention, if you're wondering why all those icons appeared when I double clicked, I have a program called Fences installed on my desktop. It makes it a little easier for me to keep things neat. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to extract this to a folder of the same name. Just have a quick look inside. Everything seems fine. And then I'm going to delete that. I am then going to add and create a new 7Z file. You can actually do 7Z file or a RAR file. It actually doesn't matter. But I've recreated the archive. I'm going to cut that and put it back in the Mod Organizer Fallout New Vegas download section where I originally got it. Go back to the to Mod Organizer, select More Perks, and right-click Query Info just to update. And if you've renamed it, if you've recreated the archive as a RAR, you probably have to tell it which file it's actually pointing at. But because I used 7Z, I didn't need that. Then I run More Perks, and now it installs just fine. I don't quite know why that is the case. Perhaps the archive was packaged in a strange manner. I'm not 100% sure, but this seems to work. One of the cool features with Mod Organizer is how easy it is to merge large mods that come in multiple parts. So for example, NMC's texture packs. I've just installed part 1. I'm going to select it there. But I would also like to install part 2 and 3. And of course, I can just do the manual installation, set data. So this looks good. Click OK. And then when it asks, hit merge. And what it's now doing is adding part 2 to the same mod. And I will, of course, do the same with part 3. And then here, there will only be one large mod for the NMC texture pack, which is going to make it a little easier and a little neater. Of course, you can actually do something similar for a lot of mods. For example, Weapon Mods Expanded and the Weapon Mods Expanded DLC patch. I could have merged those into the same mod, so I just have one mod for WMX, and that would work just as well. Sometimes it's better to have them separate so you can manipulate the priority. In this particular case, that's probably not something I need to do. However, until I know for sure, I'm going to leave them as separate so that I can play with it later and fix any conflicts I have. I will talk about that subject later on, but just be aware there are plenty of these mods that I probably could actually merge. I mean, if you're really the sort of person who likes to neaten this up, you might take things like the New Vegas uncut mods and merge them into one mega pack for your own benefit. That's completely up to you. I generally avoid doing things like that because on different profiles I might not want all of those enabled. So you're going to have to make that decision yourself. For things like NMC's texture pack though, as a general rule, when there are 3 big parts like that, you definitely want them all. You might as well merge it. I'm going to update several of these mods as well because some of them have actually got some new fixes. But right now, what I'm aiming to get is the identical setup that I was using on this save. And as you can see, I've pretty much done it, at least from the point of view of ESPs and ESMs. I've also installed a lot of texture packs, animation packs and that type of thing that don't come with ESPs. And of course, as to how well they are going to work, that's going to very much depend on the priority that I'm using here. I will come back to that in a second. As you can see though, the last thing that I need to do is create a merge patch. Now to create a merge patch, I'm going to have to use FNV Edit, and to do that, I need to add it to Mod Organizer. So I'm going to add the executable this way. First of all, I'm going to call it FNV Edit. I'm going to select the binary, which currently is inside my Fallout New Vegas folder. There. I am going to leave Mod Organizer open, so I don't want to select that. I do not want to select that. If I've done a merge patch, I'm probably going to want to manipulate files afterwards, almost certainly. And that's it. I'm going to add. Now what I've done there is I've added FNV Edit to this drop-down list. There it is. And I can now run it. I could also add it to my toolbar, so I can run it directly. So even if I have this one selected, I can click here and go to FNV Edit. Now, if you want to know more about what I just did, I did an entire video devoted to adding third-party executables. I will link it here. You should go off and watch that. It will explain to you why I had to do it this way and how to do it in a lot more detail. But for now, I'm going to make my merge patch. Before I do that, I'm going to go along to the overwrite folder. You remember all of these files? Well, they're not even files, they're just folders created by UIO. These can all actually be deleted. I have a confirmation from the mod author. There is no harm whatsoever in deleting these. So I'm going to delete it. You'll see why in a minute. I want my overwrite nice and clean. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to leave. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to close that again. Before I do that, something you should always do before making a merge patch is sort your load order. Now, I'm going to use the built-in sort, although I would generally, this is a cut down version of loot. It's pretty good though. It will probably work for 99.9% of the things you're going to do. So you can probably use this. I would recommend installing loot for Fallout New Vegas here, and you can run it exactly the same way as FNV Edit. So I now have a load order that should be fairly close to okay. Again, the full version of loot is much better. Oh, and of course, there is absolutely no replacement for actually understanding the load order yourself and being able to double check it. If you don't actually understand what load order is and you've got this far in this video, you really should go off and find out. I've got 2 videos on this subject, one devoted to load order and another devoted to loot. This is a critically important subject. You need to know this, so you should go and check that out. So, assuming you've got your load order created, click this and pretty much leave everything selected and create the merge patch as before. I'm assuming you know how to make a merge patch. I probably should put a link to a video that will show you how to do that as well. Again, if you've got this far without knowing how to do that, you really have jumped in at the deep end. So I'm going to wait for this to finish and then build my merge patch. So it's finished. I'm going to right click, do the usual, create merge patch, my merge patch. Now I could have transferred the merge patch from my old load order across. That would work. That would work just fine, but seeing as you're probably going to have to do this a few times, you may as well make a new one. So, making my new merge patch, give it a few seconds to finish creating it. Have a look at it. It's got quite a few items. Now, this merge patch should actually match my old one pretty much one for one. If I was to be really, really careful, I could actually look at my old merge patch and this new one and check to see, because of course, but I mean, it may have changed because the load order may be slightly different. Anyway, for now, I'm going to trust it, create my merge patch. And there we go, little icon. There are files in your overwrite mod. Of course there are files in my overwrite mod. The merge patch. So I'm going to right click on overwrite, create mod, my merge patch. There you go. I now have a merge patch selected at the bottom, and finally I have no missing ESPs. My load order, at least from the point of view of ESPs, is complete. It's probably in a reasonable load order, at least I hope so. I may have to look at it more carefully, but in theory, I should be able to load my game now and carry on without any problems. Before we go off and check that, what happens if you need to regenerate your merge patch? It's something you're probably going to do quite often, every time you install or uninstall a mod, to be honest, and possibly every time you update a mod as well. Well, it's not that hard. Simply deselect my merge patch. Deselect that. That's pretty important. Click on FNV Edit. Click OK. Allow it to load. Once it's done, my merge patch as before. Give it a few seconds. There's the new one. Exit the program. Save change files. OK. And it will now have actually updated the merge patch, but it's left it once again in the overwrite. Simply collect it here, drag it to my merge patch and drop it. Move and replace. Yes, thank you. Close. Reselect. You're now ready to go. Okay, so the first major hurdle is actually done. I got all of the mods that I need activated, and I have all of the ESPs so that when I look at one of my saves, it has no missing ESPs. However, just to make sure that I don't have any extra ESPs, I'm going to go along to the mod organizer folder within Fallout New Vegas. I'm going to go to the profiles. I'm going to go to the Jack profile. That's the profile I'm working on. And I'm going to open up the plugins text right there. I'm going to close that. And I'm going to close this one. I can actually tell you what that one is. It's the backup of the plugins text that I took from my Nexus mod managed load order. So I'm going to edit that as well. And then I'm going to compare them. Now, the load order is different because I've used different tools, and also because in my Nexus mod managed load order, I was messing around with the load order before I took a backup. I didn't actually set it correctly. I was just messing about. However, the important thing is 123 entries. And in the backup, 123 entries. So I've got the same number of plugins in my backup plugins text file as my current one. This is an indication that not only do I not have any missing ESPs, I have not added any extra ones either. So from the point of view of my plugins, I'm set. I've got all the plugins I need. I've got them in a workable load order. I still have a few steps left. For example, I still need to consider conflicts in the mods, in the resources, textures, that type of thing over on this side, but I'm going to do that a little later. For now, I'm going to deal with another problem that I have, and that is a problem I have with the BSAs, the archives. If I now run my game, what will happen is nothing. Essentially, the game will crash before it even opens. There you go. You'll notice a little warning came up. That is telling me there are files in my overwrite mod. Those files happen to be the UIO file folders, that they're just the empty folders. And that is because the game actually started up and then crashed so quickly we couldn't see it. And the cause of this problem are the archives. So when I go along to my archives and check, I will see which BSA files are selected, which are not. And I can tell you now, this is where the problem lies. The first thing I'm going to do is check update.bsa. I'm not sure whether this gets loaded automatically, but just in case, I'm going to force it. I don't need to worry about things like the tribal pack or old world blues, because as long as there is a plugin with the name tribal pack or old world blues, any archives that share the name, or at least the start of the name, will be loaded. So oldworldblues.esm exists, so these two will be loaded. So I don't need to worry about those. The same is true of any of the mods as well. This file will automatically be loaded because I have a plugin that starts nvec reduce ctd.esp or esm, can't remember which. But it does mean these files will actually be loaded, so that is not the problem. Believe it or not, the problem is being caused by the length of the names of these archives. If you take all of these names in their totality, if they come to more than 254 characters, it will cause the crash you just saw. So, I mean, for example, if I disabled JIP Companions Command and Control, believe it or not, my game starts. So, I must be right on the limit. But most people are probably going to actually be past that limit. It's very, very easy to pass that limit. It's very, very easy to have a lot of archives that come to more than 254 characters. And so it is a problem. One solution is to rename the files, rename the BSA files and make them very, very short. Obviously, that's less than optimum. You'll have to do some messing around, renaming everything. You'll have to make sure Mod Organizer is then using those archives, because they won't be automatically pulled in by the ESP or ESM. It is possible to do, but it's a bit messy. Now, before I show you the recommended solution for this problem, please check if you are suffering from this problem. This may not affect you, you may not be using enough mods, or it may have actually been fixed in a new version of Mod Organizer. It's very possible that this issue has gone by the time you're watching this video. Double check it, then you don't have to do this. So, try it out first. So what is the solution? Well, it's actually quite simple. You extract the archives into loose files and then hide the archive. That sounds quite a daunting task, but it's not actually that hard, believe it or not. So Mod Organizer actually gives you tools to do this. It takes a few seconds to do each mod, and it's really not that difficult. However, it should be noted, I have been told by somebody whose expertise I bow to on this issue, SRB, I have been told that 4 mods should be left alone. 4 mods should not be touched. That's Willow, Spice of Life, Caliper, and JIP Companions Command and Control. So those need to be left in archive form. Apparently, you could have some problems if you extract those, but the rest can be extracted. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to extract only the mods, not the actual official files, and I'm going to ignore the Fallout New Vegas redesigned archive invalidation BSA that came with this mod. It's not actually required, I believe, if you are using Mod Organizer. Of course, as long as you have archive invalidation checked on that profile. So I'm going to start with NV Interiors project, just because it's the first one I found. And to do this, I'm going to right click on the BSA. One option will come up and I will left click on it, extract. It will then ask me which folder to extract to, and you need to be in Fallout New Vegas Mod Organizer, where you installed Mod Organizer for Fallout New Vegas, Mods, and then you need to find the folder for the mod in question. In this case, NV Interiors Project. Now, to show you what's going to happen here, I'm actually going to open this folder, Mod Organizer, Mods. There you go. You can see the BSA file is currently there, but nothing else. So if I now go back here, select folder, it starts to extract, and you see meshes and textures have now appeared in this mod. And there you go. That has actually been extracted. Now, I could delete the BSA. I could actually do that, but that's not the recommended way of doing it. The recommended way of doing this is to find, let's order by mod name, NV Interiors Project, to go along to the file tree and then select NV Interiors Core BSA, hide. If you hide that, it will now disappear and it's gone from our list. You can also hide and unhide files from the Data tab. As you can see here, the NV Interiors Core BSA has been hidden. And given the Mo Hidden extension, I can right click and unhide, and it will once more be back in this list and also here as well. So, you can do either, whichever's easier for you. And then, of course, just go through all of the different mods and do the same for them, except the 4 that I mentioned: Willow, Spice of Life, Caliper, and the Jip Companion Command and Control. Oh, and just to clarify, it doesn't matter whether they're selected or not selected. This BSA, for example, will be loaded by the game, and so I should extract it. And there you are. All I have left now are the BSAs from the official game and expansion packs, DLCs, and the Jip Companions Command and Control. So the $1 million question now is, will the game run? Let's find out. And there we have it. I'm in game. There doesn't seem to be any problems. The textures look pretty high resolution. I have my gear on. There were no complaints. I have my modified Pip-Boy. I seem to have all of my weapons. And if I go to mod configuration, a list of mods. Everything's looking pretty good. I am pretty close to being done now. I have all of the ESPs and ESMs that I need, and my modded game is working and is pretty close to what I had with Nexus Mod Manager. But it's not done yet. There is still one very important subject we need to cover, and that is conflicts and priorities. I cannot stress enough how critical this subject is, and if you have not watched the video I did devoted to conflicts and priorities, you need to watch it. It really is. It's just as important as the load order of your ESPs and ESMs, and it's not something that you had to deal with Nexus Mod Manager. To give you an idea of how this applies to Fallout New Vegas, I'm going to look at a couple of texture packs. The NMC's texture pack, which is pretty much the biggest and most famous of the Fallout New Vegas texture packs, and EWI's Cave Retexture and Rock Retexture packs. These are 2 mods that replace textures in some specific areas, caves and rocks, obviously. When I was using Nexus Mod Manager, I would have installed NMCs first, and then I would have installed these 2 mods, and it would have warned me that I was overwriting textures from this NMC texture pack. And it would ask, are you sure you wish to overwrite them? And I would click yes to all. Then when it was finished, what I would have were all of the textures from NMCs, except the textures from these 2, which would be supplied by these 2 mods. For Mod Organizer, it doesn't quite work that way. In all 3 instances, in all of these mods, the textures are complete. Every single texture that came with NMC is here. in this mods file section. Same with this and same with this. But the ones that are supplied to your game, well, that is decided by the order they come here, the priority. And because the EWI Rocks for NV Ultimate Edition has a higher priority than the other two, its textures will win any conflict. Its textures will be supplied, whereas NMC's will lose. And you can actually go along and look at the conflict section, and you can see that this mod is not overwriting any files from any other mod, but it is having a lot of its files overwritten by EWI's Rock for New Vegas Ultimate Edition and the Caves retext, which is exactly as I wanted. However, if I got this wrong, if I placed NMCs there and then refresh this so it recalculated, you can now see that NMCs is just replacing mods. This symbol means it is replacing all of these mods files, all of these textures, and none of its textures are being replaced. If I go along to this one, you can see it has got a lot of files that are being overwritten. And in fact, doing this pretty much makes it almost useless. Either close to all, if not all, of these textures have now been replaced by the NMC one. It might not actually be all, it doesn't look like it's all, but many of them have been replaced. And of course, that is not what I want. So this priority is not correct for the effect that I want. Now, of course, that is a personal choice. That is how I want it. I want NMCs, and then on top of that, I want these two. So I must get the priority correct. We also mentioned one HUD earlier. I need one HUD fairly low down so that it actually covers any of the mods it's compatible with. And of course, I have many other conflicts to fix, and I'm afraid the only way to do this is to actually look at the mod, check the conflicts, see which mod it's conflicting with and which file, and then do some detective work. So for example, in this particular case, I happen to know it doesn't actually matter. One HUD can replace this file and it will have no effect. So I can leave it as it is. But if I go along to Wasteland Flora Overhaul and look at the conflicts there, I can see that the EWI's Rock for NV Ultimate Edition mod is replacing 4 textures. And off the top of my head, I'm not sure which mod should win this conflict. And so I'm going to have to go off and either check the installation page for both of these mods, perhaps leave a comment, or I may end up having to simply try it out. See if it works. Right now, go and have a look at some wasteland buildings and see how they look. And then change the priority of these mods, swap them around so that the other mod is winning. So that Wasteland Flora Overhaul is winning, and then see how it looks in game. That may be what I have to do. I'm afraid there's no easy way out. You are going to have to do a little bit of legwork. In the case of textures, Mod Organizer actually has a tool that may help you a little, and that is a tool that lets you preview textures. Now, it will only preview, if I go along to the data folder here and find the texture folder, it will only preview loose files. So any files that are in BSA archives, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to see. So you can't see the textures in the vanilla game unless, of course, you have extracted those archives. But if I go along and take, say, Barracks, and I can see that NMC has replaced this texture, I right-click and preview, I can see the texture that it is using. Now this is useful because I can actually show only conflicts by checking this box here, opening up textures, let's go to say landscape, and I can see this texture here was conflicted. In this particular case, I can tell you it was NMC and EWI, and if I right click this and preview it, not only can I see the EWI Rock for NV Ultimate Edition texture here, I can also click this arrow and see which file it conflicted with. NMCs, for example. So this is the one it's conflicting with. And I can sort of flick through them and see which I prefer. Now, this is not the same as seeing it in game, it really isn't. You're not going to be able to really judge it without actually looking at the rocks in game once the texture is applied to the mesh. But it does give you at least some sort of hint, and it's pretty useful even for things like weapons. So you can go along and see the different textures for different mods, especially mods like the Weapon Retexture project, which actually has completely different texture mappings. So if you get things wrong in game, the texture isn't just wrong, it will actually make the weapon look quite ridiculous. It looks very psychedelic. So you can actually check through the textures this way, which is actually a very useful tool. And that is it for this video, and indeed the series itself. There may be some future episodes if I discover a mod that requires special attention, but for now I think we're done. You should at this point have a better understanding of Mod Organizer, how to install it, set it up, how to get your mods from Nexus Mod Manager over to Mod Organizer, and feel a lot more confident about using this tool. If you are looking for more details, or indeed a good modding guide for Fallout New Vegas, you should check out SRB's guide. I will leave a link down below. He has been invaluable in creating this video, in basically checking that I did not make any mistakes, and indeed letting me know about certain features I hadn't even noticed. And so I'm going to end by thanking SRB and thanking you, the viewer, for joining me for this series. I hope you can join me for one of my other videos. I look forward to seeing you there if you do. And until then, remember, as always, have fun.